You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe and Show, the Footwear Industries podcast. We talk about a range of topics, hot topics to our industry, impacting the business side of operations, consumer behaviors, trends, shifts, everything in between. This week is really interesting because I think, oftentimes we talk a lot about the product and talk about the operation side, Jasmine, but just as important is the packaging. It's the first interaction with the shoe that you get, so it's got to be good every single time, right?
Yes. And some people even save them as collector's items. So packaging is very important now.
They really save them as collector's items?
Yes. Some people never take those shoes out of the box.
I guess I've seen collector's items like that before with kids' toys and packaging and other things like that where you keep it in.
Right.
For mint condition and all that. But that's very interesting. Well, good thing today we have on an expert to help us out with how to prioritize which boxes to save for collectibles. Ryan is no stranger to the Shoe and Show. Ryan Gaither with BillerudKorsnäs. Ron is one of their international sales executives and has been at many of our events. He's been on this podcast before. But Ryan, thanks for coming back on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly, Andy and Jasmine. It's great to be with you guys again.
So let's get into it because, we recently have released a consumer survey, Ryan, on sustainability. And I know that's at the core of what you guys work on around packaging nowadays, especially with more and more brands and retailers requesting recycled content or sustainable packaging to better tell that story. But to a T from the consumer side, it was really interesting that close to 75%, I think it was, of consumers care a lot about right size packaging. I know we talked about this in the past, but it's that idea when you get a package from somewhere and you've ordered batteries, it shouldn't come in a box fit for an elephant, right? And if we're talking about the first interaction, especially now with e-commerce growing after COVID, some brands are saying 50% of their sales are going to be on the internet. So when you see that kind of stuff and brands are out there, is that the first point of conversation you have with them is optimizing that packaging?
Yeah, it's turning towards that direction, certainly, as we've seen that growth of direct to consumer. The interaction is not just with the shoe anymore, right? We used to go into a store and pick the shoe off the demo shoe up and then request to see our size. So the package came in after you made your kind of emotional decision to buy that product. Now you're seeing that product for the first time after you deal with the packaging. So the roles are reversed. First of all, the package has to make sure that the product is safe. But once that's out of the way, if you're opening it up and to your point, see a battery floating in a pizza box, you're going to have emotional response. And the younger you are, the stronger that emotion is going to be, right? So you want the brands that you're spending your money with to reflect the values that you share.
Yeah. And around that sustainable story and around sustainability in general for the packaging, what's the direction of that? Obviously people want as much sustainability as possible, but there's also cost associated with that. And then, you've always been a really good person talking about the durability of the packaging in case you have to ship it back to the warehouse and all those things. So where are we at with discussions with brands and where things are heading around sustainability, but also the durability of the packaging?
To be honest, the discussion with brands right now is pretty limited because the brands for the last 6 months have been focused on shipping container issues, getting products here into distribution centers. But the reoccurring theme from everyone we talk to is, okay, once we get past this urgent crisis, we need to figure out how to streamline in all aspects of our business, and packaging being a big one. Footwear is really unique, right? Because you've got a slew of sizes of products that fit into a small sampling of boxes. So there's always been waste inherent with the product and how it's packaged. But it's always kind of been known, but kind of like thought of as a, 15th, 20th on the to-do list kind of thing. But now as the packaging becomes more involved with the DTC and costs continue to go up, it becomes more and more important. And then, so it's kind of a perfect storm. Your buying public demands it, and your bottom line demands that you pay more attention to eliminating that waste.
Yeah. And as Jasmine said, I mean, the collectors coming in on this stuff too, right? You better have a super durable. If you're launching something that's limited release, I bet there's a completely different conversation about what kind of packaging you're going to use. And
absolutely, especially with footwear. When you look at the sneakerheads and the blogs that they have, I've seen top 10 lists of, my top 10 favorite footwear boxes.
Really?
And yeah, now traditionally the higher end shoe gets the more tricked out carton and has that kind of the crazy foil stamping embellishments or, extra bells and whistles. And those tend to stick out in the consumer's mind. But there's a shift now where that was buying something really fancy. Now that everything is, more that emotion with the normal standard economy packaging is growing. So I think people are calling out what's a really efficient e-com box that they've gotten now. So I think your sneakerhead blog call-outs are going to change.
That's interesting. Jasmine, do you see that?
Does it? Yeah, I'm curious because, okay, one, I know like some people even include like messaging in their footwear boxes now, like whatever stories behind the shoe gets included in the box. And even like with, influencers being the hot thing right now in a lot of seating projects, they get a lot of big packaging where it's very intricate and it goes along with the product. And I wonder, like, is it hard to pick materials that can handle all those bells and whistles, like to include all that? Do you have to kind of change up the materials?
Not really the materials, because the materials have always been readily available. It's just the right use of them. And then what kind of inks are you putting on? What kind of graphic messaging are you putting in the box, right? So if you have maybe you have like an extra insert piece that goes in to separate shoes, like say Allbirds has, right? They put the branding on those inserts, right? So that is free billboard space for the brand to further connect their messaging with their intended audience.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, because I think too, we think a lot when we say packaging, we think of the box, but it's the inserts, it's the part of the making sure the shoe stays with its form, that it doesn't deform off in the box. So you have those little inserts inside the shoe. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you do have like a billboard in there, and I think more and more brands are putting in, especially on sustainability, stories around how to recycle it, where to take it to, refurbishment, especially for like leather shoes and stuff like that. Ryan, you had mentioned the big challenges we've been having on our supply chain. Are we still seeing supply chain challenges too in packaging and pulp and issues like that? Because I know, China's clamping down more and more on like importing in recycled content and recycled, items and materials. Is that still the case? And is that impacting cost and availability when we look at recycled content or even any kind of content when it comes to pulp and packaging in China?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a paper market crisis that is underway within Asia. And it's really stemming from China's ending of accepting OCC or old corrugated containers from the US and from Europe. And so that transition was coming. People knew it was coming, but it hit at the same time that we had this kind of global supply chain crisis. But what they were going to replace that old corrugated container with was domestic sourcing. But that domestic sourcing industry was kind of at its infancy. And so it needed to grow. And so basically the importance of this OCC is it's broken down to create pulp, and pulp is used to create the paper. The pulp is about 70% of your paper cost. So without that old recycled boxes to be available to make the pulp, there's a shortage. So China goes to India, they go to Vietnam where their sister paper mills are at. and start buying the supply of paper from those countries to to meet their demands. So what happens in, say, Vietnam, where they have a finite amount of production locations, the paper mills can sell their paper at a much more premium price to the plants in China than the local Vietnamese plants. So that leaves the Vietnamese plants scrambling to find material. So the prices just skyrocket in Vietnam. So where you see like paper costs going up 20-25% in China, you're looking at 30% in Vietnam.
Wow.
Vietnam does the same thing, and they go to Indo and they start buying all the paper up from Indonesia, and a domino effect happens. And so where you're seeing supply is still maintainable in Vietnam and China, when you get down to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, there is a paper shortage, right? So they don't have paper, and you have production being interrupted. You have a situation where you are trying to just price is secondary. Right. So this is the first key. So this is going to maintain very high prices. I'm sure everyone's seen an impact. I couldn't believe it if you haven't, but it's going to stay high for the next 12 months at least. So what's going to remedy that there's some new paper machines that are coming online here in Vietnam and China over the next 6 to 18 months that'll help alleviate that stress on capacity.
That's crazy. I would have never thought there was like a domino effect of those things, but for our industry, especially, it's a challenge because Vietnam is raising it. It's something like 25% of our footwear now comes from Vietnam. And, especially that's athletic and all the hot shit is coming from that.
Well, I mean, just global supply chain where you see people trying to get containers for their products.
Yeah.
Well, now brands are trying to fight to get boxes for their product. So
it's a Mad Max battle royale, not just for the cages to put the for the boxing itself, for the packaging itself. What does that mean for a company who's like, because we get a lot of our members now are saying, okay, I'm trying to target my packaging at 90% plus recycled, content. Mm-hmm. Is that really harming that effort to achieve these kind of higher numbers in recycled content for packaging?
No, the paper inherently has about 80% recycled content on average. At least the traditional papers that are used for footwear cartons.
Right.
So that's already there. And I think one of the misperceptions that people have is, well, if it's 80%, why can't it be 99% recycled? Well, at a certain point, you need structural integrity in boxes. So I always equate packaging, especially in supply chain, to that kind of Goldilocks zone. So what's enough recycled content, to wave a flag on, but what's the right balance of virgin fiber to keep it strong and streamlined, right? Because you look at any shipping carton that's coming out of your standard double wall, triple wall carton, that's the master carton for footwear. That's going to be so heavily recycled. It could be like paper mache and you could stick your finger through it, right? But because it's that poorly constructed, they use a ton of it. And then that just exacerbates this overuse of unnecessary materials.
Yeah. So what do you think is where do you think you start bumping up against that, right? Because again, if you're shipping to the home, you've got to anticipate it may come back. So you got to have it a little bit durable. So what are we bumping up against versus, what's the highest recycled content that you could probably do for the value, to make sure that you still get it back and it's still got that tenacity?
Yeah. I don't think it's a 1% number for the industry. It depends on what your brand is. Are you 100% e-com? Are you still reliant on brick and mortar stores? For the most part, it's probably all shifting to direct to consumer. Yeah. I think we're at a point now where we can really start looking at changing the functionality of a footwear carton towards not just get it to the store so that somebody can look at the shoe itself, but maybe it's time to design the footwear cartons to be a little beefier so that they can be dual purpose. Right now, most products, regardless if it's footwear or not, have two different packaging systems created for it. One for store and then a separate packaging system to deliver it to the customer. That seems wasteful, right? So how can you make that a one-size-fits-all solution. And then what brands can consider is if they're going to beef up their footwear carton and redesign it. So maybe it's not two pieces, but it's one piece and it's easily sealable, so it can ship itself. If you beef up that carton to last that kind of cycle, you could probably downgrade your shipping cartons substantially, right? Because one is losing strength, the other is picking up the strength that it needs. So I think it might be a time where you see brands revisiting the structure of their cartons and the actual form of.
Interesting, because sometimes we don't think about it holistically like that, where it's multiple things holding cartons together, right? And like how you could do it with that if it was just a little bit stronger with this, and it could be more sustainable holistically, maybe not box by box, but in your entire, packaging assortment, it could be much more sustainable to think about doing that. That's the funny thing about sustainability. I'm sure you see it too, Ryan, is like, it's never one thing or another thing. It's like, you got to have some real critical thought about the choices you make and why you're making those, and looking at the whole picture of what's happening.
I think in supply chain, depending on where you're standing, you're looking from that point of view.
Yeah.
And being in packaging gives us the vantage point of the whole chain. And so what you employ to fix one facet of it may be making it harder for the other end of the supply chain. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I always dug about being in packaging, is that unique view of the whole ball of wax.
Yeah. Well, that's Ryan. He's inside the box, looking inside and outside the whole time, right? Is there anything else that you guys are hearing from your footwear clients or anybody else? It's a major concern that people just need to keep on their radar.
No, it's just a pricing calamity.
It's not just packaging, right? It's everything. So.
It's everything. It's everything, and it's basically just strap in and hold on to your seat.
Yeah.
But relief should be coming. It's just not going to be tomorrow.
Yeah. So we just got to wait it out a little bit. Be thoughtful about it. But I guess now's a good time to start planning ahead and optimizing as best as possible and thinking about all those things.
Absolutely.
Jasmine, what are we doing today? What's our segment that we're gonna put Ryan through the gauntlet on?
Ryan, I actually am gonna just do what you getting just with you. So that's what you got on your feet now, and what you're getting. And do you have? I'm interested. Shoe storage for yourself personally. Do you keep your boxes or do you throw them out or recycle them?
Well, let me answer the second one first. I do keep, I'd say, half of my shoe cartons. Okay. So I'll either use them to hold spare screws and IKEA Allen wrenches in my workshop. Yeah. Or if they're really cool, I kind of keep them on my kind of display of cool packaging. Mm-hmm. I'm also a packaging guy, so I keep boxes that I think are cool.
Right.
That's just kind of inherent in the job. Currently on my feet, I am rocking a Olokai Maloa Hulu slippers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I think going back to last year when I realized I was going to be working from the home office for a year, I thought, I'm not wearing shoes around my house and my basement's cold. So I bought myself some slippers, and I consider these like business slippers. They're just so durable and comfy, and they're awesome.
Did you walk outside to get the mail in them, or?
I found myself in line at the grocery store and looked down and went, oh my God, my slippers.
That's all right.
They look sharp. I mean, the shin high socks with them, the shorts, maybe for a different story.
Okay, so now
that's a hot brand right now.
Yeah, they are super. Those are a nice choice. Now that the masks are being lifted, if you're vaccinated and we're kind of able to do a little bit more, do you have any shoes that you're planning on getting now that we're outside a little bit more?
Yeah, actually, I just ordered a bunch of Vans slip-ons. Kid of the 80s, 90s, just the old traditional slip-ons are just a classic. And with summer showing up right now, I just got myself a pair of the MoMA. They're Museum of Modern Art. Super cool prints. I think I got the Kandinsky print. And that's what I'll be rocking this summer.
Awesome.
Nice. Jasmine, what do you got on tap? What do you got planned?
Well, I'm with you on the slippers. I've invested in multiple Target slippers over these past 6 months. My friend actually even bought me a new pair because I wore one pair to death that has kind of like a little hole in it, but we won't talk about that. And I am planning probably to get some more heels. It looks like we'll probably be going into some cocktail parties next year. So want to kind of revamp my heel collection.
Man, I don't know what cocktail parties are going to look like in late 2021 or 2022. I guess we're going back to fashion and back to high heels and nice Oxfords, maybe, or maybe it's just like high-end sneakers.
Yeah, I think you'll be accepted either way, which will be the fun part. I think everybody has a lot more understanding that maybe you just didn't transition back to how you used to wear your shoes.
As long as they're clean, you got to keep them clean, right? You can't show up. No dirty kicks at the FDRA cocktail parties. That's the only rule. Probably means they have to be new. So please go out and buy a whole new pair. I'm just kidding. Ryan, man, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. Always fun to join you guys.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, in 2022, we have plans of getting back face-to-face, foot-to-foot, footwear to footwear, and Ryan will be there as BillerudKorsnäs always is. And you can find Ryan on LinkedIn, or you can drop FDRA a line if you're looking to optimize your packaging and look holistically at what your sustainable footprint is when it comes to your packaging. And I think, interestingly enough, the topic today is about how you reimagine your packaging. Why keep doing the same thing? We're in a completely different world and completely different channels. It's a good time to take a look at why you're actually doing what you're doing and see if you can make a change. So with that, we thank you guys for listening to our podcast as always. Drop us a line at shoeandshow.com if you got any ideas for topics, guests. You can find our entire catalog on our website of almost 300 episodes over the years, shoeandshow.com. Please subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts are aired. We're there. So subscribe and listen to us every single Monday when new shows drop. The whole goal of this podcast is to help everybody in footwear get a little bit stronger. And we thank you for listening. Until next time, on behalf of the whole crew, Shoe-In is out.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.